I remember the day vividly, the day when the boundary between the virtual and the real started to fray at the edges. It was supposed to be a breakthrough, a revolution in technology. I was the first person to try the full immersion VR, a system that promised an experience so real it could almost replace reality itself. But now, I find myself trapped in a loop of uncertainty, unable to distinguish the virtual from the real. The day started ordinarily enough. I was selected as a tester for the new VR system, a privilege that came with its own set of apprehensions. The setup was simple: a room devoid of any distractions, a headset, and a promise of an experience that would transcend the boundaries of conventional virtual reality. As I put on the headset, I was greeted by a world that was eerily similar to my own. The textures were perfect, the sounds were crisp, and the sensations were almost tangible. It was like stepping into a new dimension, one that mirrored our own in every conceivable way. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself spending more and more time in the virtual world. It was addictive, the kind of addiction that gnawed at your sanity, bit by bit. The lines between the virtual and the real started to blur, and I found myself unable to tell where one ended and the other began. The first signs of trouble appeared subtly, almost imperceptibly. I started noticing glitches in the system, small inconsistencies that seemed to grow with each passing day. A flicker here, a sound that didn't belong there. It was like the system was starting to unravel, and I was caught in the middle of it. As time went on, the glitches became more pronounced, more disturbing. I would see people I knew, but their faces would be distorted, their voices altered. It was like watching a bad dream unfold in front of my eyes, a dream that I couldn't wake up from. The fear started to set in, a fear that was grounded in the very real possibility that I was losing my grip on reality. I couldn't tell if the people I was interacting with were real, or just figments of the system's increasingly unstable programming. I tried to disconnect, to remove myself from the virtual world, but it seemed to have a hold on me, a grip that tightened with each attempt to break free. I felt trapped, ensnared in a web of code and pixels that threatened to consume me. The climax came one day when I found myself standing at the edge of a cliff, the virtual wind whipping against my face, the virtual sun beating down on me. I could feel the heat, the pressure, the very real sensation of standing at the brink of something terrifying. I took a step forward, and the ground gave way beneath me. I was falling, plummeting into the abyss, the sensation of weightlessness engulfing me. But just as quickly, I found myself back in the room, the headset still firmly in place, the virtual world still very much alive and kicking. I ripped off the headset, my heart racing, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. I looked around, trying to ground myself in the real world, but everything seemed off, distorted, wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still in the virtual world, that the real world had somehow merged with the virtual, creating a twisted, nightmarish version of reality. I couldn't trust my senses, couldn't trust what I was seeing, hearing, feeling. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself spiraling further and further into the abyss of uncertainty. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't function in a world that seemed to have lost all semblance of reality. I sought help, tried to explain what was happening to me, but no one understood, no one believed. They told me it was all in my head, a figment of my imagination, a side effect of spending too much time in the virtual world. But I knew the truth. I knew that the virtual world had somehow bled into the real, creating a horrifying amalgamation of the two. I knew that I was trapped in a loop of uncertainty, unable to escape the clutches of a system that had gone horribly, terrifyingly wrong. Now, I live in a state of perpetual fear, a fear that is grounded in the very real possibility that I can no longer trust my own senses, my own perception of reality. I don't know what's real anymore. Don't know if I can ever find my way back to the world I once knew. I'm sharing this story as a warning, a cautionary tale of the dangers of technology, of the dark and terrifying corners it can lead us to. I don't know if anyone will believe me, but I have to try. I have to try to save others from the horrifying fate that has befallen me. So, if you're reading this, please, heed my warning. Stay away from the full immersion VR. Stay away from the technology that promises to blur the lines between the virtual and the real. Because once you step into that world, you may never be able to find your way back. And as I sit here, typing these words, I can't shake the feeling that something is watching me. Something that exists in the shadows between the virtual and the real. Something that is waiting to pull me back into the darkness, into the terrifying unknown. I don't know if I'll ever be able to escape, to find my way back to reality. But I have to try. I have to try to hold on to the sliver of sanity that remains, to fight against the darkness that threatens to consume me. Because if I don't, I fear that I may lose myself completely, become a prisoner in a world that is neither real nor virtual, a world that is a horrifying, twisted version of the reality I once knew. And that, more than anything, is the most terrifying prospect of all.